No one ever said it was easy. Working on a guitar is a difficult job all the way around the instrument. Turning a 53 gold top into a Sunburst created more challenges than payoffs.
This is a cautionary tale. Don't be this stupid. This is the original fretboard. This should just say, I'm an idiot on it.
I want to run! I want to run! I want to run!
J.J. French, guitarist for glam band Twisted Sister, is known for rocking out on his signature pink Gibson Les Paul.
You know, the pink serves the Twisted Sister purpose. Pink became part of the Twisted Sister thing because I think back in the Technicolor transvestite era that we were floating into in the 70s, we just needed something to match the motif of the stage.
Out of the 100+ guitars in his collection, gold is what really gets his heart racing.
Gold tops have been a passion of mine since the early 70s when I saw a couple of record albums with Freddie King holding a gold top.
JJ thought Freddie King was more badass than anything he had ever seen. Even more than Twisted Sister.
Look at this picture. Look at the expression on this guy's face. I mean, if this doesn't say rock and roll is the devil, I don't know what is. I said, man, that guitar is evil. And it just represented the earthiest, most sexually double entendre aspects of why I like rock and roll music. This was it.
After that moment in time, he had to have a gold top. And JJ's obsession with evil has grown into a chronological collection over the years.
This happens to be maybe the most perfect 52 that I know in the world. It's dead mint. First year had a trapeze tailpiece, which was a transferred jazz thing, which made the guitar virtually unplayable. So he realized that and got rid of that.
The 52 is the earliest model in JJ's collection. But his first gold top was this 53.
Essentially, this guitar cost me $300 and I bought it new. At its peak resale, which was probably about 4 years ago, it was probably worth about $65,000.
But being a bit of a rebel himself, JJ just couldn't leave a good investment alone.
This is a cautionary tale. Don't be this stupid. This guitar, I changed from this into a 59 burst, meaning I had a luthier in Long Island strip the paint, take the pickups out, take this thing off it, put humbucking pickups in, make holes in the guitar, completely make this a Sunburst Les Paul, and I wanted him to put the words "disco sucks" on the fretboard, which he did. This is the original fretboard. This should just say, I'm an idiot on it in pearl. So a luthier by the name of J.T. Ribeloff, I was told this guy could actually make this a 53 gold top again. So he gets the guitar, and this is the conversation takes place. Hi, JT. What the f did you do to this guitar? I said, man, I don't need the lecture. Can you make it a Gibson Gold? He goes, man, it's going to take a long time. You really f this guitar up. Well, the bottom line is it took 2.5 years.
JJ's reconstituted 53 isn't all that different from his 55.
Essentially, the 53 and 55 were basically the same, except that the neck angle switched again, and the pickups were not set so deeply into the body. You can see the knobs also had a lower profile, but essentially, it was just a bit of a change, but aesthetically, it looked exactly the same.
But if you ask him to justify buying something so similar to his 53, he gets a little defensive.
Well, why do women buy shoes and bags? Most guitar players just get addicted. I mean, we get crazy. I can't think of anything better during the course of my day than to walk into a music store and just mess around with guitars.
Now that that's cleared up, you'll be able to appreciate the differences found on his 56.
The next transition of the Les Paul introduces the Tune-o-matic bridge. And the saddles on this bridge enable the intonation of each string to be more accurate, so you can actually play the guitar and have it stay in tune with itself. This is one of the very last gold tops built with the P90 pickups.
By the last year of production, the Gibson Les Paul Gold Top was nearing perfection.
The final incarnation of gold tops was this, which is a 57, 58. There was always a bit of overlap as the evolution happened, and the evolution of the gold top ended with this model, which has stop tailpiece, tune-o-matic bridge, and humbucking pickups.
But collectors beware. This isn't an original 57. Today, one of those would set you back $150,000. Instead, JJ has a very rare reissue, the only one of its kind.
The only difference between this guitar and another gold top of that era is that this isn't a real one. This is actually a Tom Murphy created reissue, an identical reproduction of what existed back then.
Tom Murphy is known for aging guitars to make them look like they've been loved. Or in some cases not loved by a rock star.
If you would have told me years ago that people would pay extra to have a guitar look like crap, I would look at you and think you needed your head examined. I always wanted to have Tom work on this for me, but Tom, by contract, doesn't. He just works for Gibson. But I did some promotional work for Henry Juskowitz, the president of Gibson. One day he said to me, "Man, thank you so much for what you did. Is there anything I can do for you?" And I said, "Yeah, I have a 57 reissue, and it looks just too good."
When that shiny 57 came back trashed, JJ knew his collection was complete. Of course, an entire lineage of gold tops may seem excessive to some, but for JJ, it's just right.
It's such a love of these instruments that permeates me. And it kind of, I think it stimulates the sex gland or something. It is a very sensual experience.
Nothing wrong with mean and nasty either.
I got a Freddie King album, and there was a picture of him holding a gold top on the cover, and it was the meanest looking. I mean, his expression on his face was the kind of expression where a mother wanted to hide their daughters from this guy, and he had a gold top Les Paul, and I became enamored of gold tops.
You're looking at up to $250,000 worth of vintage gold top. JJ French, guitarist for the glitter metal band Twisted Sister, collects Les Paul gold tops the way you and I collect dust.
The first vintage Gibson I bought was a 1953 gold top. I own a lot of gold tops. This one is a 1952. It happens to probably be the most perfectly maintained 1952 gold top in the world. I bought it several years ago when it became available, and I just wanted it as an example, as like a museum piece.
JJ French is a very knowledgeable guitar collector, but it's not about the green.
Well, I love all the guitars I own. I mean, I have an emotional connection to all my guitars. I own them for a reason. I own them because guys I worshipped play them, or album covers that I loved had them on it. There's an emotional connection. I've never bought a guitar simply for the purpose of taking it, holding it, and selling it. I've always had a reason to own it, and have, if they've gone up in value, so be it. That's how collectors should collect, because at the end of the day, you know what? They're all $200 pieces of wood.
The Gibson Les Paul made its first appearance in 1951, almost 2 years after Leo Fender's solid body Broadcaster and Telecaster began to sell in large numbers. At the time, Les Paul was an accomplished jazz guitarist in his own right, backing up the likes of Bing Crosby, the Andrews Sisters, and his wife Mary in the 40s and 50s. His solid body electric guitar emerged from his experiments with what Les Paul called the log. A 4x4 piece of lumber with a neck, strings, bridge, and pickups attached. He just sawed the body of an old acoustic guitar in half and slapped it on so it wouldn't look so weird. His signature guitar would undergo subtle changes over the years, but the essence remained the same throughout its original production run. Approximately 1,500 guitars.
The guitar evolved over years. This trapeze tailpiece was removed for a stop tail and eventually a tune-o-matic bridge so you could do the intonation. This is just the earliest version of it, but I love the color. It really speaks to me. A lot of old Chicago blues guys play this stuff, and it's kind of glitzy, chintzy, weird. Again, I didn't play it live for most of the time in Twisted. In the first year, you can see pictures of me playing my 53 Gold Top with some modifications. But I have a bunch of these, and I love them.
As you may have noticed, JJ has a thing for the color pink.
I don't know who it was that suggested that I do a pink burst, but it became my signature guitar, the Pink Burst. I'm in a million photos with it. This guitar has been around the world. This guitar has been on every record. This guitar weighs 10.5 pounds. There's not enough ibuprofen to have me wear this guitar any longer. So when the band broke up or ceased playing back in 1988, I thought I would never play it again anyway. Put it in storage. I really had no idea the band would ever reform. And when the band reformed in 2003, I didn't want to carry that with me. It weighed too much.
JJ went straight to Gibson and asked them if they'd be willing to custom manufacture a signature Pink Burst to his specifications.
Using this as a template, they made this, which became my stage guitar and still remains my stage guitar when Twisted goes out on the road. Except that I asked them to do a couple of different things on it. First of all, I asked for a cutaway. Now, people familiar with Fenders know there's cutaways. It's more comfortable, leans on you. So when you're running around on stages, when you run around with a back like that, that kind of cuts into your abdomen. These are practical considerations. This is much more comfortable. It also takes a little bit of weight off the back. One of the things that blew me away when I got this guitar was that my name is over Les Paul's. Now, I didn't ask that to be that way. I was stunned when I saw it. To this day, I'm mortified why my name would be over this. I mean, these are the guitars that I've been lusting after all my life. If someone told me in 1962 that one day I'll be, quote, a rock star, and that a guitar brand would have my name on it, and that it would be over a legend, I'd say, yeah, right, you're dreaming, and yet here it is.
For JJ, there's other considerations when it comes to sticking with a Gibson, and it's primarily the sound.
With a Gibson, you kind of do, so you kind of like get this. Gibson guys like thicker tones, Fender guys like glassier tones. I find Fenders more difficult to play, hence I find the better guitar players tend to play Fenders, and I'm not a Fender guy, so go figure. I think a Telecaster is the most revealing guitar on the planet to play, and I think only the best player should ever play a Tele. But I admire great Tele players. It's interesting to note that guitar players like Jeff Beck, who started out on Gibson Les Pauls, wind up on Fenders. Clapton started out on Les Pauls, winds up on Fenders. Is it because the Fender's lighter? Maybe. Is it because it articulates more in their ears? Maybe, and reflects a greater coloration and the distinctiveness of their playing? Perhaps. Is it more of a challenge? Maybe. Is it more macho to go to a Fender? You know, all these things come into play.
JJ French doesn't worry about macho. Put a guitar, any guitar, in his hands and he's a happy man.
That's what I do to entertain myself.
Your first thought is, who in their right mind would want this many pink guitars? Or maybe, did someone have a sale on pink paint? No, none of the above. Like so many historic events, it started with a half-baked idea on the part of this guy.
Yeah, it's just a matter of personal taste.
J.J. French is the founder of and guitarist for glam metal band Twisted Sister.
I wanna run.
In the frenzied, fickle world of rock and roll, Twisted Sister has survived both a breakup and a reunion, worldwide sales, and off-the-radar obscurity. But for J.J. French, the routine, comfortable life of a semi-retired rock star was ripped apart when his family doctor told him his daughter was in trouble.
Oh, man. Well, I'm the parent of a child with a chronic disease, first of all.
His daughter Samantha was diagnosed with uveitis, a disease that almost inevitably leads to blindness. Luckily, she was diagnosed early, at the age of 6, purely by accident after a routine examination.
The problem is with most kids who are diagnosed with the disease is that there's no way that we know that we have it. It doesn't really manifest itself. There's no pain. There's no blurriness of vision. There's nothing that would really signify to us that we have a problem. In one instance, the cell activity was so bad that my right pupil got stuck to the back of my eye, so it wasn't dilating at all. And there was so many what we call chorotic precipitates, which is just cell buildup in the back of the eye, that it blurred my vision so much that it felt like I was looking through water all the time. I really couldn't see very well at all.
It's the leading cause of blindness among girls in America, but it's an underfunded disease. So when you have the wherewithal to do something about it, like your personality, think of something you can do. Well, doing a benefit is something Twisted Sister could have always done to raise money for the Ocular Immunology and Uveitis Foundation. Try saying that 5 times fast. For 2 years or so, I would go up there with a signed J.J. French guitar and auction it off and make $5,000 to $10,000 per guitar. But I was trying to think of something bigger.
The something bigger started with his signature Pink Burst Les Paul.
This was originally a tobacco burst Les Paul that was purchased new, and I brought it to a luthier named Steve Carr. I said, can you make it like a pink kind of burst? Now, it's faded over the years, you know. He just kind of like sprayed it, but it looks like Pepto-Bismol pink. And the back is also kind of bursted, a pink burst. You could tell this, I mean, this is really faded. This guitar has seen the years. This guitar has been on every album the Twisted Sisters ever made, and it became my signature guitar, the Pink Burst. About 3.5 years ago, I was at a big musical instrument convention, and I walked into the Fender room and met one of the master builders at Fender, and I kind of joked with him about making a Telecaster look like a Les Paul. If you know anything about guitars, you would know that to ask one company to make it look like another company, it ain't gonna happen. And he looked at me like no one's ever asked me to imitate another trademark aesthetic from one guitar to the next. People just don't ask that. Well, what do you mean by that? I will illustrate, because it's kind of important. A Les Paul, a Gibson, has what is known as a trapezoid inlays, right? These are these are the markers, right? Well, no other guitar company does that. Gibson has its name in pearl on a black headstock. That's kind of Gibson's thing. Gibson has binding on the neck. So I said to this guy, would you make a Fender look like a Gibson? Match the color, I'll give you the exact paint formulation and make it look like this. And he kind of looked at me like I was crazy.
But, surprisingly, without a lot of arm twisting, Fender agreed, and the idea began to take on a life of its own. Next, Martin agreed to do a pink version of the 00018 acoustic.
So now Martin's involved. So now there's that. Then the Strat comes. Then I contact Gibson. I said, you know what? You're my guitar company. I've got all this stuff happening. They said, well, what do you want next? And I said, how about, an ES335? How about an SG? Then when they heard that Martin did the 00018, they said, how about an SJ200?
For JJ, the guitars had to be fully sanctioned by the guitar companies. Officially manufactured guitars only, please.
The only company that did not agree to do it, who I asked, was Rickenbacker, and that's only because they have no custom shop. They did offer to sell me a guitar, have someone outside do it. Didn't want to do it that way. I wanted them to be official. I wanted to have paperwork from the factory that said, custom made for JJ French, this project.
And then the kicker.
The guitar companies don't necessarily like each other, and they don't want to trample on each other's proprietary designs. Amplifier companies have this whole other thing. It's called the Tolex, the fabric that actually covers the amplifiers. They all have a feel and a color that are all unique, except for one thing. Basically, one guy makes all the Tolex for all these companies. He says to me, you know what? I made a small batch of magenta Tolex that would be absolutely perfect for this project. It's enough Tolex to cover the amplifiers you wanted. All the guitars and all the amps in this project were all handpicked by me because I knew there was a mating issue between certain guitars and certain amps. If you wanted a Strat with a twin reverb, the twin reverb by Fender's made. If you wanted the Tele with a Deluxe, the Deluxe is there. If you want a Fender with a Fender bass amp, it is there. If you wanted a Paul Reed Smith with a Mesa amplifier, I got Mesa to come on board. Didn't I tell you that you were from
Samantha and her dad are close.
So you basically ignored me.
Yes, I did.
Somewhat ironic given Twisted Sister became known in the 80s for pitting teenagers against their parents. But then, JJ French isn't your average parent.
I got past the whole embarrassing thing with my dad when I was like 8 and Twisted Sister started touring again. He got hair extensions and I had to deal with him bringing me to school every day. My friends coming to shows and seeing him in makeup, I mean, that was embarrassing. So Pink, just the fact that that's all added into it, I mean, there isn't much more that could embarrass me about my father. I'm proud of him. I mean, when people ask me what my dad do for a living, I say, honestly, he's a drag queen. Like, my father is a middle-aged drag queen. You know, you gotta laugh about it.
When people say to me, how did you get it done? I say to people, I asked. I said, you know what? You guys know me. I love instruments. I'm trying to think of something special to raise money in a unique way that'll bring a lot of publicity for this cause. Would you do it? And every company said yes.
All of these unique Pink pieces, destined for the auctioneer's block at pinkburstproject.org, will disappear from JJ's life. But no regrets.
For her not to potentially lose her eyesight, it's not even a question. If you were to say to me, well, what would you give to have your daughter not have the disease? I'd say everything I owned. You take it all tomorrow.